Hey everybody, this video is a beginner's guide to using building to win one-on-one fights in Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 4 Absolute Doom. This season has a lot of new locations, new weapons, some interesting new mythic items, but in a refreshing change of pace from last season, there aren't very many things that break builds, and that means we're going to have a great time practicing our close range fighting skills in build mode. This season has some strong shotguns and lots of ways to save yourself from fall damage or quickly climb to high ground during a fight. That means that skills like high ground retakes aren't as valuable as they used to be. This means that in Season 4, your main objective for using your builds and edits during fights is to navigate close range fights, trap your opponents, and find opportunities to get Peeker's Advantage. And we're going to return to that phrase, Peeker's Advantage, in just a second, but first, let's explain how exactly you should be building in one-on-one fights in Chapter 5 Season 4. In Fortnite, you can place walls, ramps, cones, and floors. These pieces will be placed in different positions based on your character's location on the building grid, and also based on where your crosshair is pointing. Placing builds often relies on connection points with the existing buildings around you. For example, aiming above or below the halfway point on any wall will place a cone above or below that wall. Aiming slightly above a wall will place a cone on the opposite side. It's important to learn how each building piece places, so make sure to spend some time building in creative mode using walls, ramps, cones, and floors to move around in an open space. Each of these pieces can be edited to change the shape of the piece you're working with. When you edit a floor, each tile that you select removes one corner of that floor piece. Each tile of a cone edit raises that corner of the cone piece. When you edit a ramp, the first tile you select will always become the lowest end of the edited ramp. There are more total wall edits than ramps, cone, and floor edits, but some of them aren't worth using very often, and some of them are almost completely worthless and you shouldn't worry about them. If you're following along with this video, I strongly recommend booting into a creative map code like the one featured on screen right now, so that you can practice using builds to find angles against enemy players. If you're a beginner level player, the most important wall edits to learn are window edits and this top right 3-tile edit, and we call this one the peanut butter. This edit is so strong because it allows you to jump, strafe, or crouch peek. Your opponent doesn't know where you're going to appear, and it gives you an excellent angle to put pressure on players around you. To start using these edits practically, you need to first learn how to put yourself inside a box. The easiest way to do that is to have something to connect to. When you're out in the open moving around, it's hard to know where you are on the building grid, and when it's time to place walls, it can be difficult to make sure that those walls place directly in front of you. To fix that problem, place a floor at your feet. If you're standing on a floor, even if you're standing on a corner of that floor, all you need to do is look straight down at your feet and spin to place 4 walls around you. The biggest mistake I see players making when using builds to fight one-on-one in close range is they don't stand on top of a cone. You need a cone at your feet inside your box. It prevents your opponent from trapping you under a ramp, and it's just so easy to work with for making all sorts of offensive and defensive plays. So make sure you stand on a cone when you build a box. Like it or not, we're playing Fortnite, and you need to learn to play from inside your fort, and that is this box. And I know in this video we're talking about building strategies to be used in one-on-one fights, but those same strategies will still absolutely be the core of everything else that you learn to play duos, trios, and squads. If your goal is to become a much better team player, you really need to start by becoming a solid solo player. And that journey begins from inside this box. As you practice building boxes, try to keep a couple things in mind. The first, and most important, is that you need to look either straight down or straight up to make sure that you place all 4 of the walls closest to you. Next, make sure you jump as you're spinning around to place those walls, because as you fall, you can place a cone and make sure that you don't end up trapped underneath that cone. One last little mistake I see players making while boxing up is they try to jump and build a box while moving. All you need to do to build a box is stop moving, look straight down, spin around as you place walls, and finally place a cone and land on top of it. Once you're safely inside a box, you can start looking for angles to put pressure on the players outside of your box. Before we get too deep here though, you should know that at this point, if you can build a box, you can already play build mode very effectively. But to be successful, you need to already have good hand-eye coordination. You need to be able to move around in fights, not lose track of your enemies, and follow them closely with your crosshair. If you haven't played other shooters in the past, this might be a hard skill for you to acquire, but it's absolutely the place you need to start before you get any deeper into building and editing. We can call these your zero build plays, your overall gunplay, your combat IQ, whatever you want to call it. It's hard to get practice in Battle Royale. Even for players who mostly play creative build modes, what I notice is many players get worse at gunplay and combat IQ because they're focusing so hard on just using their builds and edits to win fights. So what I would strongly recommend is that you hop into a game mode that allows you to play build mode without actually building very much and just getting used to how other players navigate through their builds so that you can get practice moving with them and aiming at them. There are a lot of maps out there that allow you to practice this, but I think the most relevant way to do it is with a map called Endless Zone Wars. This map has a lot of players, but it keeps things very tightly packed by forcing all of those players into a slowly moving storm circle. Unlike other Zone Wars maps, when you get eliminated, you spawn right back in the sky, ready to go again. That's why I think this map gives you the best practice per minute in terms of build mode combat IQ. You can play this map without building anything, just mantling around other players' builds, and you can even win games by doing it. To be clear, if you are a brand new beginner level player, this Zone Wars map is still the best way for you to get practice in build mode, moving around and shooting other players, even if you're not doing any building yourself. Once you feel like you have a solid foundation of combat IQ or gunplay skills, you can start using your boxes to keep yourself safer during fights. Even before learning simple edits, if you just box up and then wait for a wall to break, you can gain a huge advantage in the fight by shooting your opponent as the wall breaks and then moving with them as they dive inside your box. In all of these situations, playing against an aggressive opponent, you can win the fight just because you built the box, and that gave you the chance to shoot first and then move with your opponent and aim at them to finish the fight. Once you have these simple skills ready to go, we can start using edits to give you chances to deal damage without taking damage. And the way we do that is by finding Peeker's Advantage. Peeker's Advantage isn't about left-hand peeks or right-hand peeks. Peeker's Advantage is a way to exploit a feature that all online multiplayer games have. Because of latency, there's always a difference between what you see on your screen and what your opponent sees on their screen. If I jump right now, I see it, but my opponent doesn't see it until the Fortnite server processes my action and sends it to my opponent's system. Peeker's Advantage is the whole reason why you often find yourself getting hit behind walls. On your opponent's screen, you were visible, but on your screen, you weren't. The faster you move, the more distance you create between your character's location on your screen and your character's location on your opponent's screen. If that distance is far enough, and if you move fast enough, you can shoot an opponent before they have even seen you on their screen. For example, sprinting and sliding allows you to move pretty quickly, and that's why in this example, a left-hand peek will beat a right-hand peek. Overall though, with how slow movement has become in Chapter 5, it's much more important to find peeks jumping, falling, or standing up from a crouched position. All of these movements are much faster than just moving left and right to peek out from behind cover. And you should notice that in each of these examples there is a much bigger difference between what the peeking player sees compared with what the defending player sees. From inside your box, the best way to get Peeker's Advantage is with the peanut butter jump shot. Standing close to the front left corner of the box allows you to jump and safely shoot players outside your box. From the enemy player's perspective, it's almost impossible to shoot back. And if you do it perfectly, it is impossible to shoot back. This peek might not work if a player is standing right in front of your box. In that situation, you'll need to move the peek angle back and peek from behind your cone. If you open up a large 6-tile wall edit, you can stand up from a crouched position and get peeker's advantage from behind your cone. If you play on mouse and keyboard, it's important to use scroll wheel to reset your builds. To set this up, go into your building keybinds and make sure that your inputs for building edit and reset building edit are both set to the same scroll wheel direction. With fast resets, you can open an edit, jump or stand up out of a crouch to gain peeker's advantage, and then quickly reset to keep yourself safe. Playing from inside a box is the best thing that you can do as a beginner level player, but I'm sure some of you want to learn more advanced things like piece control and high ground retakes. And I promise we'll talk about some simple strategies to accomplish those more advanced goals in the next video, but for now, stay inside a box. If there's a player above you, you can try some of the upward reboxing or edit swap skills that we'll talk about in the next video, but for now it may be better to find peeker's advantage from low ground using a peanut butter edit and then simply mantle all the way up, especially if you can hear that player using healing items. After you've gotten comfortable playing from inside one box, it's important to practice leaving your box and building new boxes left, right, forward, or backwards. Generally, you'll want to do this with simple 3-tile edits that allow you to drag your crosshair in mostly straight lines. This also allows you to keep solid flush angles using your cone edits to protect yourself as you leave and enter new spaces. Simple reboxing skills lead us into tunneling and piece control that we'll talk about in the next video, but for now you should get started with practicing these skills in one-on-one box fights and realistic 1v1s. And I'll make sure to include some creative map codes in the video description to make sure that you guys have some solid chances to practice these things. If you feel that you are struggling with some of these skills and you're finding it difficult to see the path ahead of you, it will help a lot to have someone else look at your gameplay and tell you exactly what it is you need to do. That's something that I personally love doing as a coach. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to check out the resources in the video description, like our coaching Discord server, as well as our new application form to make sure that you can get started as quickly as possible. Thank you guys for watching the video, and we'll see you in the next one.